Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more session on Docker. Let us look into the agenda of this particular session. In this particular session, we'll basically understand about Docker operations. That means how to create Docker containers, how to start containers, how to stop containers, how to create images, how to list images, all the basic operations with the Docker containers we will look in this chapter. Okay. Now for this, I'm creating one virtual machine, or I have already created one virtual machine on AWS. Okay. Let me open that virtual machine. Now I'm logged into on a Ubuntu server. Okay. Now let's say, let me log in as a sudo user first. Now, as I have told you, all the modern operating systems has inbuilt support for Docker, right? Let me do a package update on that. Okay, the package is updating. Now let me install Docker. Sudo apt install Docker. Enter. Yes. Now Docker is installing on this particular system. Now this system will become as a host system. Be clear? Now let me run the syntax docker hyphen version. It says docker not found. With the updated one, we can also use this syntax to install Docker. Let's say snap install Docker. Okay. Now let me check the version. You see the Docker version is 20.10. Now we can run this very simple syntax docker help. Now with this, we can see all the commands that is related to Docker. Okay. Now you see there is management commands like build, compose, commands like attach, build, commit, cp, create, execute, etc. Now let us understand a couple of these commands. Okay. Let's divide into different segments like basic commands, container inspect commands, okay, pulling commands, pushing commands. All right, let's segregate into different segments. Now let us run the first command. First command is to see, I want to see if there are any images, docker images. Now you see there is no images in this particular system. Now why do we need images? Because containers we create from images, right? But I don't have any images here because this is a newly created Docker host system. So to see the images, if I run Docker images, we'll come to know if there are any images or not. Now let us see if there are any containers that are running or not. To see that, we can use the syntax Docker ps. You see there is no containers which are running. And we can also use Docker ps -a. This will be like if there is a container and if it is not running. Docker ps will show the containers which are running. Docker ps -a will show the containers which are not running also. Okay. Now let us see the next command. Let's say I want to create a container. Then we can use the syntax docker create, and we have to give the name of the image. So we know that there are two types of images, right? One is a pre-built image, another one is an image that we can create our own image or a customized image. Now I want to use an image which is pre-built and which is there on a Docker Hub repository. Now let's say there's an image by name Ubuntu. Okay. Now let's say Docker create Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the name of the image, and enter. Now let us learn one more command to create containers. The syntax would be docker create and the name of the image. Okay. Now here I will give the image as Ubuntu. Now what is this? Do I have this image locally? I don't have this image locally. Now Docker will connect with Docker Hub repository and it will get that image. Okay. So now when I use a create, a container will be created, but container will not start. Let us enter. Do you see that? It is unable to find the Ubuntu locally, pulling from the library Ubuntu. So that means it got the image from the Docker Hub and it created a container. Now let us see Docker images. You see, previously when we saw there is no image, but now there is a one image called as Ubuntu. Now let us see Docker PS. You see there is no container that is running. So we have just created a container, but we did not start the container, or we did not run any container. Now to see the containers which are not running also, we can use the syntax docker ps -a. Now you see our image is there. Now when I run this container, you see there are a couple of metadata we are getting with this particular in this particular output. One is container ID. You'll come to know what this container is created from which image. Okay, what is the batch that you're using, when it is created, what is the status, what are the ports, and the name of the container. So did we give any name to this container? We did not give any name to this container, but there is a name. So Docker randomly gives some name if we don't specify any name. But we can also name our own containers. Whatever name that we wish, we can also name that. Let us see how to create a container with our own name. The syntax would be docker create hyphen name. Let's say I will give the name of the container as level up. And what is the image? Let us say I will take this time image as Python. Okay, enter. Now you see Python image is not there locally. It is pulling from the library. Okay, now image is still creating. This image is not, container is not running. The container is just creating. Let us wait for a moment. Container is getting created. You see the download is finished and it is extracting. Now the container is created. Now let me use the syntax docker ps-a. Now if you see, two containers are there and the container name is level up. Okay, this is the name of the container that we have created. Now let's say I want to rename the container name. How can I do that? Now we can use the syntax docker rename. What is the name of the container? Level up is the name of the container. I want to rename that to level up 1. So docker rename the name of the container and what we want to rename that to. Enter. Now let me see Docker ps-a. Now you see the name of the container is changed to level up 1. That is how we can rename a container. Now let's say the container is there. I want to remove a container. How can I remove a container? We can use a syntax called as Docker RM. RM stands for remove. And we can either use the container ID, we can also use the container name. In this case, let us use the container ID, Docker RM in the container ID. Okay, now it is showing an output of container ID. That means it is removed. Let us see that Docker ps-a. Now you see there is only one container. So this is how we can remove a container. Now sometimes you will face a problem in removing container. It says that the container could not be removed, etc. In that scenario, you can use Docker RM hyphen F flag. F flag stands for force. We can use force option and then remove the containers. Okay, now I'm using Docker RM hyphen F and the container name, enter. Okay, this syntax will also work either by using a force flag or without a force flag. Okay, now let me create one more container, Docker. Now let me use another syntax here. I will use the syntax called as Docker run. Now what is run? Docker run. So let me put it here. Run is equal to create plus start. Okay, that means if I use syntax Docker run, it will create also, it will also start the container. Okay, this syntax will do both the operations. Docker run, and this run I can run in multiple options. Okay, one of the option is called as IT. IT stands for interactive terminal. That means give us a interactive terminal. Okay, now first let me run this without interactive terminal. Hyphen hyphen name. Okay, Docker run hyphen hyphen name. Let's say name, I'll give the container name as level up. Okay, and it should run from a image called as Ubuntu. Enter. Okay, now you see a container is created. Let us see Docker ps sorry Docker ps hyphen a. You see a container is running here. Now let's see Docker ps. Okay, so this container is created, it is running in the background. Okay, now let's say I'll create another container, Docker run hyphen hyphen name level up 1. Let's say from the same image Ubuntu, but this time I will give a mode called as hyphen it. Now what happens, the container Ubuntu will be created and it will give us a terminal of the container. Here we are in a terminal of the host system. Okay, you see 172.31.82, 184. Now as soon as I run this, it will give me the terminal of the container. Enter. Now you see, this is the container. Now I'm there in a container. Let's say I will run some command, make directory, enter, ls. Okay, now I can see a folder called as container. Now if I do a exit, now where I'm back in the host system. If I do ls here, I'll not be able to see that particular folder. That means IT stands for interactive terminal. When we are creating a container, if I give this option called as hyphen IT, container will be created, started, and we will also get a terminal. Now let us see Docker ps. Okay, now because we we are exiting out of that container, we're not able to see anything. Now, I want the container to keep on running, but I don't want any terminal. Okay, how can I do that? Docker run. I'll give an option called as -d. -d flag stands for detach mode. Okay, hyphen name level up to Ubuntu. Enter. Now you see, it is showing that there is a container that is created, but where are we? We are not in the container. We are in the host mission terminal only. Now let us see Docker PS. Let me clear this. Docker PS -a. Yeah, now you see, I can see all the containers which are running in the background. Okay, that is how we can see the, or we can create a container with a IT mode or a detached mode or a interactive terminal mode. Okay, let me clear this. Now let us look into the commands docker start, docker attach, and docker stop. Now let's see the running containers. If I give the syntax docker ps, there are no running containers now, right? Now, first of all, let me start a container. We use the syntax docker start. Let's use the container level up 1. Okay, now that means the docker container is started. Now let us see the docker.ps command. Now you can see there is one container which is running. Now let us use docker attach level up 1. Okay, now you see I'm in this particular container now. Okay, now if I want to come out, docker exit. Now if I see docker ps, the container is stopped. Okay, we can also stop it manually. Docker stop, or let's say, yeah, we can see docker stop level up 1. That is the name of the image. So now if I see docker ps, ideally you should not be able to see any running container because there is no running containers. Okay, that is how we can use docker start, attach, and stop. All right. Now let us look into another command called as docker execute. Okay, let us recap and see what we have learned till now. We understood syntax called as docker run, docker -- version, to get help, docker help, docker create, docker run, docker stop, docker start, docker attach, docker rm, and in run we understood multiple tags like it, d. Okay, and we have learnt about docker ps, docker ps-a, docker images. Okay, these are the couple of basic commands or daily operations with docker. I hope this is clear. See you guys in the next session. Take care.